Okay, so nobody wants to be that person, the one who is well-intentioned but ends up saying something offensive. Maybe you've asked a coworker, "Where are you really from?" Or joked with a person of color about how they sometimes act like a different race. We may not intend for these comments to be offensive, but these types of statements are examples of microaggressions. You've heard that term used a lot. How do we confront microaggressions? How do we tackle them? How do we end them? Joining me now, clinical psychologist Dr. Adolph Brown, a friend of the show, and I'm so glad you're here to talk to me about microaggressions. I feel like we could talk a week about this. I like to refer to these as almost like a death by 1,000 cuts.
Definitely. In fact, it's weaponizing words. What happens is, as you said earlier, they're subtle comments, but these comments are often damaging, demeaning, they're insulting, and they pretty much really harm people of color. And the unintentional nature of them almost makes them continue. So what do we do to really stop them?
Well, what I thought we could do is sort of divide it into two sections. We could do spotting them, identifying them, right? So that we know what we're dealing with if we're feeling them, or if you are perpetrating them inadvertently, or maybe not so much inadvertently. And then also how we can address them and deal with them in our lives. So this is the point that's important to talk about in spotting them, because they can be so subtle sometimes, Dr. Brown, that if questioned or called on them, the person that's perpetrating the microaggression will be like, I mean, in a court of law, you couldn't prove that. They wouldn't say that, but I didn't say anything untoward. They're so subtle oftentimes.
They are. So it's very important to understand that they come from preconceived stereotypes and prejudices. So if we're aware of those stereotypes and prejudices, we can do better in not cloaking statements that have underlying connotations of those stereotypes.
So things like targeting somebody who looks different. This one I find very interesting, this notion of color blindness. I've heard this a lot.
Yeah, and one of the things that I often challenge people with is what do you do when you come to a traffic light? Do you just drive through them all? I mean, there's no such thing as colorblind. If there was color blindness, you wouldn't see me today. Right. So instead of colorblind, let's talk about being color brave. Let's acknowledge who we see and what we see, but goes deeper than that. How do we perceive what it is that we're seeing?
And this is one that we've talked a lot about in the conversation about social justice, is this assumption of criminality, right?
Yes, yes. And this is probably one of the most common microaggressions, is when a person of color is approaching someone from the majority group, and maybe they cross the street or they clutch their purse. There's a insinuendo. There's a statement that's not being said, that you're a dangerous person. And that comes from the stereotype of that people of color may be dangerous.
The idea of, following somebody around the store. I mean, we've had that before. Okay, well, this one hits quite close to home. Talking to someone about how they wear their hair. I yelled it a bit because it's one of those. Dr. Brown, I'm sorry, I am not trying to insert myself in this, but yes, hair, the conversation about hair.
It is. And in fact, Michaela, has anyone ever asked you to touch your hair?
Oh!
so
yes.
The microaggression here.
Yes.
So the microaggression here is that it's different, and it's almost assuming that it's inappropriate, that it's so different that does it belong here? Is it a workplace? Is it a workspace? So again, a microaggression, words that are weaponized.
Yeah.
And we have to be more cognizant, more cautious, and aware that this happens to people of color on a daily basis. I mean, it's contributing to everything from hypertension to migraines. I mean, it's really, really problematic.
It really is. Real quick, I want from your words to the audience why it is so, because I'd rather have it come from you than from me. The conversation about why it is inappropriate to want to touch our hair.
Well, first of all, you're invading someone's space.
Yep.
And that's number one. And secondly, when you're curious about something, it's important to say or ask a question. And because the hair belongs to the individual. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes, Michaela, what we're not talking about is that they don't ask to touch your hair, they touch your hair. Mm-hmm. So that there's some places that's called the racism reaction, mm-hmm. where a person is so upset with all those daily hassles that they respond. So what I tell people, if anyone ever says that you have the right one, run.
I contended with a slightly inebriated person who repeatedly kept trying to touch my hair at a party I went to. I left soon after. Okay, so let's move on from that, and let's move to addressing microaggressions. Because here's what we don't want to have happen, is we don't want people mixing it up and getting in fights and getting, especially in the workplace, you need to keep your tone down. You gotta stay professional, but you want to make sure to address these things in a proper, respectful tone.
Definitely. And one of the things that I tell people, it's okay to give everyone the benefit of the doubt.
Of course.
At first. Give them the benefit of the doubt. We're human beings and we're all subject to making mistakes. So give everyone the benefit of the doubt. And from there, if someone perpetrates a microaggression towards you, then say, could you explain more? I like clarification, because like you said in the beginning of the segment, we judge people, all of us do, but when it's time, when someone turns that back on us, we become lawyers and we want to explain our intentions.
Right, yeah. Exactly. I think it's really important for us to always talk about from the I perspective, right? And also even addressing when you're talking to someone about the comment, not the person.
Definitely separate the person from the behavior. These are unintentional slights. That's the operational definition that we use for microaggressions. They're unintentional. So it's not as if someone is blatantly attempting to be disrespectful.
Yeah, and overall, just practice compassion. Grace and compassion is super important.
That's everything. We're all human, and sometimes we forget that.
Well, the thing for folks at home, and I'm not trying to call anybody out, but it is really about, we have to separate intent from impact. You may not have intended that to be offensive, but if it really hurt and really was offensive to me, you have to take responsibility for that, for those actions and those words. Yeah. Dr. Adolph Brown, a delight to speak with you. I know you're in the cold out there in Virginia today, so you stay buttoned up and bundled up, and hopefully you'll have power later today. Good to see you. We appreciate it.
Definitely.
We'll be right back.
Thanks.